So right now it is time for irrigation blowouts up in this area. We're in Massachusetts, so up in New England. For those of you down south, you probably don't do this. Just blowing out the irrigation system, blowing out all the water, so in the winter none of the pipes freeze and expand and break open. So blowing out an irrigation system is really easy. Go over your backflow, make sure it's open. You want to make sure the water is turned off inside the house, which has already been done by this homeowner. I'll make sure the spigot's open. So put our adapter on here. That's what we use to go from the spigot to our hoses hooked up to our compressor. So I'm gonna hook up my hose, which I already brought over. Make sure it's on there. It's all set. So before you go and turn the compressor on, you want to make sure you open some valves. You can either do this manually or through the clock. I'm going to show you guys manually, but I'll explain how to do it through the clock. So here's our master valve. We're going to open that up. Whether you use bleeder valves or open up the solenoid, doesn't matter. So there's our master valve. And with our compressor, we can handle quite a bit. So I'm going to open up 3 zones. Make sure those are all open. Alright, we'll walk over to the compressor. Now it's important that you have valves open when the compressor is running. That's why I opened them before. Just as a precaution, you don't want any pipes bursting, from the pressure. Probably not going to happen, but it's not worth taking a risk. So we're just going to turn the compressor on and open up the air line. So I'll tell you guys that now because it's going to be loud when I turn it on. So here we go. And when I turn it on, it's going to automatically send air through the lines. So you'll see a few zones pop up. Go over, we'll open up the air. Now we have 3 zones running. The compressor's just pushing out all the water, pushing air through all the lines. We'll let these zones run through. I'll show you guys how much of the water you want to get out. You want to get out most of the water. You're not going to get every little bit. After a minute or so, there's not going to be much water coming out of most of the heads. You'll be able to see either the lowest head on a zone or the last head on a zone because it's going to be the only one shooting out water. See, this one's already shooting out air. Those are all shooting out air already. So those 3 zones are pretty well blown through. We're going to go on to the next 3. So I shut 2 zones off. I shut that one and that one off, but we're going to leave that one on until I turn the other 3 on. So we'll walk to the front, to the next box. Right here, we'll open up 3 more. Now we have 3 more zones running. Now we're going to repeat that procedure for the rest of the zones. So I now have ran through all the zones in groups of 3s. There's 12 zones, so I went 4 times. Now that they are all blown through, I'm going to go through each one individually. Make sure just about all the water is blown out. If there's a little bit of mist coming out of the last head on each zone, that's okay. So one at a time, I'm going to go through them all, making sure that as I switch from zone to zone, I leave one on. So now after running each zone by itself, We have all the water out of the lines. This is my last zone here. You can see there's not any water coming out of the last head. So, to shut your compressor down, you want to make sure you leave a zone open so that the air still has somewhere to go. You want to go to your compressor and shut your air off, then you can shut the machine down. So now that our compressor is shut off, you can close the rest of your zones. So we can close our last valve. We put the cover back on, and we can go back to our master now. Shut the master valve. Take your hoses off. Now I leave the spigot open so that any water that is in there can drip out. Your two shut-offs on the backflow, you want to turn, if you can, turn to a 45 degree. That way any water that is in there can still come through. So now that we have everything cleaned up, quickly explain to you guys running a blowing out system through the clock instead of through the valves manually. So it's just the same way. You open up your first valve, turn your compressor on, let it run through. You can use a little cheater like we do. It's just a bunch of wires with clips on them. That way you can turn on a zone and clip to other zone terminals and run, 2, 3, 4 zones at a time. You go through the same process, run through them all in groups, run through them individually, and then you're all set. That's how you get all the water out and make sure that your irrigation system will be safe for the winter. Thanks for watching, guys.